Next on Currents News, World Youth Day is underway. Young people from around the world are arriving in Panama. The Pope will join them on Thursday. Tonight, our team coverage begins. A deadly new law that Albany's bishop calls a Death Star. I'm going to talk to him about it.
Catholic Charities Brooklyn and Queens helping out federal workers affected by the government shutdown. I'm Emily Druby, and that story is ahead.
Plus, the parents who chaperone those Catholic high schoolers speak out about the rush to judge them. The news starts right now. The World Youth Day pilgrims are filled with enthusiasm and faith as they arrive in Panama. Good evening, everyone. I'm Liz Faublas. Oh, it's big. Young people from around the globe coming together in Panama to celebrate their Catholic faith with the Pope. This is the day, one of the first World Youth Days ever held in Central America. We kick off our team coverage with Currents News' Tim Harfman, who's talked with a World Youth Day veteran.
This was us waiting in Madrid for the Pope.
Paulo Rosa is excited to attend his third World Youth Day. An international gathering with hundreds of thousands of young Catholics and Pope Francis to strengthen the church.
When you go out there and kind of see people from all over the place, all over the world, it kind of gives you a sense of like, you know, you're not the only one doing this, so it pushes you to kind of want to keep working for him.
Now he's leading a group from Our Lady of Sorrows Church in Corona, Queens to Panama. Some of them are attending World Youth Day for the first time, like 16-year-old Annabelle Maradiaga and 17-year-old Giseli Fernandez.
I expect to be honestly very inspired and just reflect on what I already know, and then I hope to learn more. And I know that it's just going to be overwhelming happiness. I know that for sure.
I want to build a better connection with God and to see where it can take me.
Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you.
They'll spend nearly a week in prayer and fellowship.
The days are long. It's not a vacation, you know, and that's the one thing that we have to remember. It's not a vacation. We're out there for pilgrimage. We're going to be walking. We're going to be outside.
These first-timers turn to Paulo and other pilgrims for advice on what to pack.
A couple of them told me to bring a journal just in case I can write down what I learned and how my day went overall.
A lot of people told me to bring a lot of water because the water in Panama is very different to the water here. They told me to bring a lot of comfortable shoes because we're going to be walking a lot.
Now that they're packed and ready to go, these pilgrims are joining nearly 200 other young Catholics from Brooklyn and Queens. In Corona, Tim Harfman, Currents News.
Currents News will provide coverage of World Youth Day live from Panama later this week. National correspondent for the Tablet and Crux, Christopher White, is there right now, and I'll speak with him in a few moments. Crux Rome Bureau Chief Inez San Martin will fly to Panama with the Pope on board his plane on Thursday, and Tim Harfman arrived in the country this afternoon. Coverage begins January 24th at 9:45 a.m. A new law allowing abortion in New York, even in the third trimester, is being approved by Governor Andrew Cuomo and the state legislature. Cuomo, a Catholic, has long backed the measure despite fervent opposition from the church. For a decade, the so-called Reproductive Health Act stalled in the Republican-controlled Senate. Now, majority Democrats are in charge. The law permits abortions at any time during a pregnancy if a healthcare practitioner approves the deadly procedure. Bishop Edward Scharfenberger leads the diocese in Albany, the New York State capital, and he joins us now to discuss the repercussions of this act. Bishop, thank you so much for being with us. Powerful words from you, Bishop, calling the new abortion legislation a Death Star that will shock people by its impact. Please tell us, what are your biggest fears?
Well, first of all, fear is useless. It's faith that counts. And the job of the gospel and what Jesus Christ tests us all to do is to spread the light. Now, what has happened is an enemy has sown weeds into the Lord's vineyard, into the Lord's field. And the weeds, unfortunately, threaten to take the place of the weed. What we have to do is we have to increase the light by turning the light on exactly what we're dealing with right here. You mentioned that I used the word a Death Star.
Yes.
The Death Star, everybody's familiar with that from Star Wars. It's sort of like a modern-day version of a Trojan horse, something that appears on the outside to be a gift, in this case, a gift to women, when in fact it is quite the contrary. It contains the seeds of the destruction.
You have criticized Governor Cuomo for saying that we should stand with Pope Francis while he pushes for an abortion measure that you label aggressive extremism. Has there been any response from the governor?
I would not expect the governor to respond directly to anything that I would say would not be in his interest to do that. But I would expect others who see the discrepancy, the disparity actually between what this bill is marketed as. It's false advertising. And the idea that this is going to help women, when on the contrary, it's going to hurt them. It is not in their best interest at all. And I think this is the type of thing we want to see. Mm-hmm. But it's not only the governor. We have to remember one thing. The reason for 12 years and beyond, many good people have been working to forestall this eventuality. This finally happened. Votes count. Elections have consequences. And if Catholic voters are going to vote intelligently, they owe it to themselves, and we owe it to continue to remind them of what exactly candidates stand for.
This legislation affects so many, as you know, that's obvious. What happens to healthcare professionals who support the sanctity of life, who oppose abortion? Are there protections for them?
This is actually one of the most alarming parts of this legislation, because the question now is raised whether or not anybody will be able to be licensed who is not willing to perform an abortion. Will we come to a point whereby a person will not be able to even receive a license to practice medicine if they will not also agree to perform forced abortions? So the whole question of religious and liberty and conscience rights is going to be right on the forefront, and we have to keep our eyes and ears open.
And what options are there for Catholics who are pro-life? Where do we go from here?
Continue to live very, very publicly, and not to be afraid to witness to what you believe, because the truth is on our side. We need to continue to promote, first of all, the science right here. Science is our friend. And all of the sciences of embryology that involve neonatal care continue to point to the humanity of the fetus, the humanity of the unborn from the moment of conception and throughout the process of gestation. We need to promote the truth about what a human being is. Remember, Jesus himself was one time conceived in the womb of a woman, the Blessed Virgin Mary. And he was always our Lord and Savior from the moment he was conceived.
Amen to that, Your Excellency, Amen. Bishop Scharfenberger. It is always a pleasure to speak with you. I appreciate your insight.
Thank you. God bless you.
Abortions are up and adoptions are down. That's according to the latest figures from Planned Parenthood. In its new annual report, the organization said there was a 3% increase in abortions, performing over 332,000 of them in their last fiscal year. Meanwhile, the number of adoption referrals dropped 25% to less than 3,000. Planned Parenthood also saw a profit of nearly $250 million, which is a 150% increase from last year. Tonight, the Catholic high school at the center of a rush to judgment controversy is closed. Officials are concerned about student safety. Teenagers attending Covington Catholic High School were accused of taunting a Native American while in Washington for last week's March for Life. Additional video revealed the students were subjected to verbal attacks. School officials met with law enforcement early on Monday to discuss new threats against students and the school. While the school is closed today, some parents who were chaperones on that trip to Washington are talking about what they saw happen.
Our boys were targeted. They were targeted from the get-go. Immediately, there were all these people running around filming.
And parents Jill Hamlin, Jim Wilson, and Val Andreeve, who were chaperones on Covington High School's trip to take part in the March for Life, say they have the video to prove it. The parents are defending the teenagers after this video of a Covington Catholic student standing face to face with Native American elder Nathan Phillips on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. lit up social media and sparked a rush to judgment. The adults say the teens did not incite violence and were calm as taunts were hurled at them. They shared this video that shows a verbal exchange leading up to the now well-known moment, ignited by a small group of black men who identify as Hebrew Israelites.
I mean, I can't believe they even stayed and listened to the vitriol and the hatred that was being shouted at them. As a mother, it was horrible, horrible.
And our boys did nothing, no violence. They did not attack those gentlemen. They stood there waiting for their bus.
Wilson said he tried to intervene and to defuse the situation. You can see and hear him doing just that in this video.
Back it up! Hey, back it up! Back it up!
Your college degrees was paid off of the bloodshed of slavery.
They were curious of those men, so I got in between those men and the boys and pushed the boys back. Eventually, I could get 8 to 10 of the boys that knew me, and I said, we need to get out of here.
The young man at the center of the controversy, Nick Sandman, seen here with Phillips, releasing his own statement, saying, I believe that by remaining motionless and calm, I was helping to diffuse the situation. I realized that everyone had cameras and that perhaps a group of adults was trying to provoke a group of teenagers into a larger conflict. The parents say the 170 or so boys were standing waiting on the bus to pick them up to pass the time. They did a school cheer. At one point, a student even takes off his shirt. Minutes later, Nathan Phillips beating a drum and walking towards the students.
In the March for Life, you saw a lot of Make America Great Again hats, sweatshirts.
And attire, yeah.
Right, but they also were wearing their Covington Catholic sweatshirts proudly.
A statement from the Diocese of Covington and Covington Catholic High School out today reads in part, quote, concerning the incident in Washington, D.C. between Covington Catholic students, Elder Nathan Phillips, and Black Hebrew Israelites, the independent third-party investigation is planned to begin this week. This is a very serious matter that has already permanently altered the lives of many people. It is important for us to gather the facts that will allow us to determine what corrective actions, if any, are appropriate. President Trump could meet with the Covington students at the White House as early as tomorrow, and that's according to conservative commentator Laura Ingraham. Earlier today, Trump tweeted about the controversy, saying, quote, Nick Sandman and the students of Covington have become symbols of fake news and how evil it can be. They have captivated the attention of the world, and I know they will use it for the good. A big decision from the Supreme Court today about the U.S. military. The justices revived President Trump's ban against transgender people serving in the armed forces. The court voted 5-4 to back Trump, at least temporarily. Lower courts had blocked the president's order from going into effect. About 9,000 service members identified as transgender in 2016. Congress is back to work on Capitol Hill as the government shutdown drags on in its 5th week. Both Republicans and Democrats are trying to pass bills to end the stalemate, but as Karen Kafer reports from Washington, progress not likely.
House and Senate leaders pushing legislation to reopen the government. Neither bill likely to get it done.
We want the Republicans to take yes for an answer for bills that they have led the way on and negotiated in order to open up government.
Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell moving a version of President Trump's weekend proposal that includes $5.7 billion for the border wall and 3 years of protection for 700,000 undocumented immigrants who arrived in the U.S. as children, an extension of the Obama-era DACA program Trump seeks to end.
To reject this proposal, Democrats would have to prioritize political combat with the president ahead of federal workers, ahead of DACA recipients, ahead of border security.
But Democrats have deemed it a non-starter. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi plans to move a package of bills to reopen most shuttered federal agencies plus $1 billion in border security funding, but not the president's wall. 5 weeks in, many of the 800,000 government employees caught in the middle face tough financial choices, like Francis Nichols, a pretrial services officer working without pay.
I haven't had a full tank of gas since probably the shutdown. I've been putting in only what I need to make sure that I can have food.
Federal workers are slated to miss another paycheck on Friday. In Washington, Karen Kafer, Currents News.
The University of Notre Dame is covering up murals on campus that depict Christopher Columbus in America. Notre Dame's president, Father John Jenkins, made the decision following criticism that the images show Native Americans in stereotypical submissive poses before white European explorers. The 12 murals in the school's main building were created in the 1800s and intended to encourage immigrants who had come to the U.S. during a period of severe anti-Catholic sentiment. There's a lot more news headed your way. Furloughed federal workers are without paychecks and suffering from the shutdown. What Catholic Charities is doing to help them make ends meet. National correspondent for the Tablet and Crux, Christopher White, has touched down in Panama for World Youth Day, and he's standing by with the latest. The Vatican has formed a new team, an Olympics team. Why a pharmacist and a religious sister decided to join. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number 718-517-3122. We will be right back. The government shutdown has now lasted over a month. All across the country, furloughed workers are struggling to make ends meet. In Queens and Brooklyn, those employees are getting some help from Catholic Charities. Currents News' Emily Druby has the details.
With the shutdown more than a month old, volunteers unpacked thousands of dollars worth of food at St. Benedict the Moore Church in Jamaica, Queens, for a special pantry.
This isn't a group that we would normally see.
The campaign held to help government employees affected by the shutdown.
Due to the furloughs and non-paychecks, it's needed. It really is.
This special food pantry put on by Catholic Charities Brooklyn and Queens is being welcomed by those who are without their paychecks, like TSA employee Veronica J.
Oh, it means a lot. It really does. It's very touching, I want to say. Because, you know, to have your back against the wall and I know opportunities are out there, and then they tell you, like I said, we'll share stuff. I found out from another coworker, so we'll kind of share what's going on.
Items given away included everything from food to toiletries.
It's a really big help.
Gas cards, food vouchers, and Target gift cards also given away. Catholic Charities had some help from nonprofit Rock Can Roll, which donated goods, and PS 217, which provided volunteers. Debbie Hampson of Catholic Charities Brooklyn and Queens explains since the shutdown, they've seen more government employees reaching out for help.
We have 20 pantries through Catholic Charities in Brooklyn and Queens, and we're getting IRS workers, we're getting TSA workers, we're getting other furloughed government workers. So there really is a need, and people, you know, for the first time have to ask for some help.
Hampson says they did work alongside local TSA employees to spread the word for the event, but that it was for any furloughed employee as long as they had their federal work ID. This isn't happening in just Brooklyn and Queens. Catholic Charities across the country are helping out federal employees in many different ways. For more information, you can reach out to your local Catholic Charities outpost. Liz?
All right, Emily, thank you. Continuing with our team coverage of World Youth Day 2019, national correspondent for the Tablet and Crux, Christopher White, is in Panama City, and he joins us now. Christopher, thank you for being with us.
Great to be with you, Liz, from sunny Panama.
Oh, low blow, my friend. Christopher, you know what? This is the first time that Central America hosts World Youth Day. What does this mean for Catholicism worldwide?
Liz, I think what we're seeing here with Central America playing host to World Youth Day is just further proof that it's really the global South that is fueling the church around the globe. And the energy and enthusiasm that we see with the young people here in Panama is very promising.
What are the expectations of the U.S. church leaders for the coming days? What themes can we expect to really stand out?
Liz, I spoke with a number of church leaders in past days, and what I've heard from them is they really think the Pope's encyclical Laudato Si, in which he calls for care for creation and urgent action to sort of fight environmental decline, is going to be one of the top themes that he addresses. We're also here in Panama, where it's influx from the global south and the north, where migration has emerged as a number one issue as well. So that an issue that Pope Francis speaks about so often in the past, he'll probably return to here in Panama.
Really quickly, Christopher, will the clerical sex abuse crisis factor into this week's festivities, you think?
Liz, I spoke with Bishop Caggiano this morning, who told me that, look, it has to be addressed, but it can't dominate the discussion. So we'll probably hear about it, but it's not going to be the only thing we hear about.
Really quickly, Christopher, this is the 4th World Youth Day that you've covered. So do you expect this one to be different?
Well, one thing I'm paying close attention to, Liz, is this is Pope Francis's first World Youth Day in which he's been able to speak Spanish the entire time. So I think it's going to give him a lot of comfort with the pilgrims. But for us reporters, it means we're going to have to be on our toes as we try to keep up with him, because he's bound to go off script quite a bit.
You're right about that. Thank you so much, Christopher. Enjoy the warm weather and the festivities. Still to come on Currents News, a Vatican team at the Olympic Games could become a reality. We'll tell you what steps are being taken to make that happen, and the story of a family heirloom recovered from the rubble of a devastating fire. We'll be right back. California's Camp Fire took dozens of lives and left thousands without a home. While sifting through the rubble, one family found something they thought was lost forever. This ring is a family heirloom made out of her great-great-grandfather's tie clip. Heather Thornwood recovered it, had it restored and polished, a piece of her family history recovered from that rubble that Heather hopes she can pass on to her children. Dreams of having a Vatican team in the Olympic Games are a bit more real tonight. Already, some religious at the Holy See are in training. Melissa Butts is standing by with the latest on the creation of an internationally recognized Vatican team.
While Pope Francis might not personally be crossing the finish line in the Olympics, his track team might, as the newest country racing toward the Summer Olympics is the Vatican. The Vatican's running group has officially been promoted to an official team, with Swiss Guards, Vatican workers, migrants, priests, and a religious sister, as some of the 60 team members of Atletica Vaticana. Yet the group is quite different from other teams. They don't have a track, practice hours, or a main head coach, allowing everyone to run when they have time. The idea to create it was a couple of years ago when we realized we all worked at the Vatican and had this passion to run. We said, why not? Let's create our own team. Previously, the Vatican competed on a smaller scale with unofficial football and cricket teams. Now, thanks to an agreement between the Holy See and the Italian National Olympic Committee, they aimed higher and also added a Paralympic team. We aren't more holy, better people, faster, or even more Catholic. We just work in the Vatican and are a big family. The team's main goal is to transmit Christian values through sports while competing against other athletes, both nationally and internationally. French Dominican Sister Marie Theo is an honorary member of the team and the only religious sister. She says she was never a runner, but runs with a message. For me, it makes sense to give an image of joy to receive life and to share our faith with others through sports, to give this message of peace and fraternity. While the team currently has around 60 people, since it's become official, the numbers of participants and interests have grown with each day. If you're ever in Rome, be sure to watch out for these blue and yellow tracksuits with sisters and priests running throughout the city. They train not only spiritually, but also physically. At the Vatican, Melissa Butts, Currents News. Back to you in New York, Liz.
All right, thank you, Melissa. That is Currents News. I'm Liz Faublas. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. I hope to see you again next time.